2023. Let's have a roll call. Marjorie Austin.
Here.
Beth Justice.
Here.
Larry Tuning.
Here.
Bill Goldsmith is here. Mary Hanson.
Here.
Sandy Sturgill.
I'm here.
Alana Courtney.
Here.
Having a quorum, we'll continue with the meeting. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have an agenda before us. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Sandy Sturgill seconds. Any discussion? Being no discussion, we'll have a vote. Marjorie Austin?
Yes.
Beth Justice?
Yes.
Larry Tuning?
Yes.
I say yes. Mary
Yes.
Hanson?
Okay,
Sandy
yes.
Sturgill and Alana Courtney?
Yes.
All right. The agenda is approved. The first item we have is a presentation to us by the Urbanna Beautification Incorporated, or is it Initiative? Okay. Moving forward, go ahead. Ann
I'm
Miller and
Ann-
Nancy Greenwood.
Ann Miller, yes, Nancy Greenwood. So in accordance with our memorandum of understanding with the town of Urbana, the Urbana Beautification is pleased to present the town of Urbana with monies for the maintenance of the property totaling $7,200.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate that. And as part of my report, I was going to mention that we had had an addendum to the memorandum of understanding, and in keeping with that, Michelle has made line items of money in and money out so that they can be tracked for that purpose, and
Oh, great.
and that's where this will go in the ledger.
Wonderful. Thank you.
But we really appreciate that, because any little bit to keep that place going has been a real asset to the town, and we truly appreciate that.
We actually had lunch there today in honor of Betsy's birthday.
You know, I want to just say that, good job. You gals do a
Yeah.
great job. It
Yeah.
looks beautiful.
It's a real asset to the town.
Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts.
All right, next on the agenda is public comment. Beth Justice is going to read a couple of letters, but we'll let Vicki Satterwhite come to the podium. Vicki, if you could step up here, please.
Very much. Thank you. Remember, you have 3 minutes.
Excuse me?
You have 3 minutes.
I'll go fast. Okay. To the distinguished members of the Urbana Town Council, I consider myself fortunate to be a resident of this beautiful town. I moved here in 2014 from Virginia Beach and enjoy the slower pace, the friendly neighbors, and idyllic views. I live right across the street from Waterman's Park, and a delight to me, but maybe not so to our town mayor, right next door to him. I'd like to take a moment to thank the council for the dedication in making this a lovely place to live. I know that you put in untold hours and have much on your plates. I simply cannot fathom all that you do for our town, and I, for one, am very grateful for everything that you do. There are quickly 2 topics I wanted to address to you this evening, the first being Waterman's Park. Living across the street from the park, I have a bird's eye view of the various activities that take place there. I have witnessed beautiful family gatherings, couples picnicking, and even a small wedding. It is lovely to look out my front window and see people enjoying this small but well-kept park. Often, however, I have witnessed far more nefarious activities. Some of these activities include gang fights, people doing drugs and selling drugs, kids tossing the expensive riprap into the river, people throwing rocks or chipping golf balls into the osprey nest, which is probably why we have not had a successful hatch for going on 3 years now. I've had witnessed people having sex, lots of sex in cars, sex in trucks, sex on the picnic tables, and yes, even on the benches, and yes, these are all taking place in the daylight. Most of these things I have witnessed from my window. When I venture across the street, I have found even more alarming usage of our park. People climb the fences at the bottom of the steps, and although there are no trespassing signs, they go on our property owners' piers Here they fish and they rob crab pots and oyster pots. My roommate lost 400 oysters this year, where they actually cut the wire of his oyster pot he was planning to have for the oyster festival, and they took 400 oysters from the pier. When confronted these people, they usually cuss at us and tell us that they have the right to be there. I have called the non-emergency number for Middlesex County countless times. I know when I call, they go, it's that same lady again, Mrs. Kravitz, looking out for the park. And people come to the park well after dark.
30 seconds.
There are two signs there posted where the park is clearly written but they go unheeded. What I would like to ask the park is, the council, is that we put up security cameras, or we have more police enforcement, because our park is being used for what is not intended to be. I would like to ask the council for security cameras. If the security cameras are put up, or we have more police presence, then perhaps the park will be
Time.
more intended for its purposes that we would like to have it for. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Beth?
Okay, here I go. I hope I can make it. This is from Lisa Brindle and Greg Brindle. Good evening. My name is Lisa Brindle. My husband Greg and I live at 181 Kent Street, the property that borders to the Waterman's Park. I'm here to ask for your assistance in a security monitoring system for the strip of land owned by the town. We have owned this property for 15 years, and my family originally purchased property in 1917 there. Every year, the number of visitors to the park increases. License plates from all over the country, which is a great thing for town tourism, but not for the property owners that border this park. The policing in this park has been solely placed on the shoulders of two property owners. I have spoken with 3 town administrators regarding my concerns, starting with Louis Filling, Holly Gailey, and Garth Wheeler. The lower level of the park is an exceptional hiding place from Kent Street. There is no way to see what transpires below the staircase other than viewpoint in our backyard. Vandalism, theft, trespassing, fighting, drug dealing, and sex acts. My neighbors can also attest to these. I hope that you will also consider the same system for Tabor Park and the beautiful new additions. 6 councilmen in 1999 sat in our position and decided our fate to open this park in 2000, and at that time the town had a patrolling officer, which is currently non-existent by the Sheriff's Department. The Middlesex Sheriff's Department cannot be counted on to respond to Urbanna. The world, country, and this town are decidedly different places since that day 23 years ago. I ask that you consider security cameras and signage that states no fishing, swimming, or camping. The fishermen ascend the fences at the bottom of the stairs and trespass on piers, poach crabs and oysters from private floats. I can provide pictures. The riprap is not conducive to swimming, and yes, we have had campers setting up tents for the night. I speculate that these were also the concerns for the recent kayak pier that was proposed for the property at the end of Virginia Street. This park is posted as dawn to dusk hours, which are not observed. If the town cannot absorb the burden of this property, then it should be closed and sold to a private entity, using the proceeds for current costly projects in town. Thank you for your time and consideration. Lisa Brindle. I hope I didn't
40
read that too
seconds to
fast
spare.
or you could understand.
Beth Justice, would you like to read a letter, please?
Let's go again. This is from the property owner on the other side of the park, Mark and Sherry Makuda. My name is Mark Makudo. My wife Sherry and I have owned 185 Kent Street in Urbanna for over 26 years. That property is adjacent to Waterman's Park. The park opened a few years after we purchased the property. The park seemed to be operated properly by the town up until the last couple of years. That has changed. I've noticed folks in the park in the evening after sunset is prohibited by the town of Urbanna ordinance. There have been 2 instances of individuals going over the park fence and onto my pier. The fence is clearly marked on the park side with no trespassing signs, as is my pier. In the past, benches from the park were carried out onto my pier. One instance involved a gentleman stealing oysters from my oyster floats. When the deputy confronted him, they made him put the oysters back, and no charges or report was filed. This is complete negligence on the part of law enforcement. It was also noticed that the man and his friend were having sex in the lower level of the park. 2 weeks ago, another man was on my pier. He was witnessed by my neighbor climbing over the park fence with the no trespassing signs posted, and he proceeded to go onto my pier with a crab pot, fishing rod, and cooler. When confronted by two of my neighbors, he became very hostile and threatening to each and was using profanity. I sent a picture of the person to the town sheriff. A deputy called me back and said I needed more information on the identity of the individual to press any charges. Are you ready? The deputy said, I need his name, date of birth, and social security number. Individuals do not have a right to trespass on private property. That's all in caps. Urbanna's website regarding parks and recreation states, please respect nearby homeowners' privacy, peace, and quiet. The town of Urbana must do its job and respect the private property rights of its taxpayers. The town ordinance prohibits the following: drinking in public, indecent exposure, profanity in public, use of the park after sunset and before sunrise. The town owns the park and is solely responsible for its operation and any ordinance violations. By this letter, I am requesting that changes be made to the park operations. Patrolling and monitor the park after sunset would be a start. Security cameras would make it easy to monitor. One other solution is to put a fence across the top of the park. Individuals could still enjoy the view. Unsavory and illegal acts
30
would not be
seconds.
hidden as they are now on the lower level of the park. State on the town website that the park is closed at sunset. I would also request that law enforcement do their jobs, arrest trespassers. The park is closed and take their information so it's on file in the event of a future offense. Property owners have to confront trespassers as dangerous. What would you do if someone walked into your house? Again, the town of Urbana owns Waterman's Park. It is responsible for adhering
Time.
to its own rules, laws, and ordinances. I had one more sentence left, but that's all right.
It's all right.
Let it go.
And those letters will be in the packet for this evening. Does anyone else have a comment? I have something to say.
Go ahead and I'll say it after.
All right. Knowing this was an issue, a couple of weeks ago, right after the last meeting, as a matter of fact, I called Sheriff Bushy and asked him to increase his patrols, particularly in the evenings as well as on weekends, because that was an increasing problem. And in addition to that, Martha and I met with one security company to get a bid for placing cameras at the new well, the pool in Tabor Park, Waterman's Park, the town hall, and the museum and Scottish Factor store. We met with one group. We don't have a bid from them at this point, but we have another meeting with a second company on the 19th of next week at 10 o'clock. And the Marina was also in that group. I'm not sure whether the officer that was ticketing people at the new four-way stop was a result of that. I apologize to anybody who got a ticket, but you were breaking the law. And at least we've taken that into consideration and have moved forward.
Well, there was an entire box, probably 15 or 20 trail cameras that could be put up, and they have handheld readers.
Right, and
With that,
we had a
so-
trail camera up for a while, but this is actually a security company that would, with those things, they're action activated, their night vision is minimal, and they're not a good solution because of how you have to use them. But in the meantime, I mean, those are things that we had before. The ones that we purchased were not very good.
Oh, okay. 'Cause they're
And that's
Pretty
why
good
we went
about
to
seeing things.
a professional group to try to get some 360 view cameras and get better coverage for the areas that are involved. So it is a work in progress. Like I said, we haven't gotten back a bid from the first company or a visit from the second, but they were people that Kevin Gentry over at the county had recommended would be useful for us.
How would that help at night?
We may have to have some lighting, and that's going to
Yeah.
have to be negotiated with, with the properties owners on either side as to, what they feel about that. There may be enough light up at the top that you could at least get pictures of the people coming and going. But that's just my thoughts. The professionals will give us their advice on how that should be. What's that?
Is there a street light there?
Vicki?
There's a street light pretty close to there. Right, Vicki, isn't there one right?
There's one on the corner.
On the corner right
between
between
you
us?
and myself, but it doesn't actually reach into.
We'll look into the
Yeah.
possibility.
Well, it would be up at the top,
Yeah.
so you could see people who came and went from there.
Look into the possibility of doing a street one.
Well, yeah, there is one at the street. The question is farther down.
Oh, I
and-
see. It doesn't
and-
really
And see,
go
if you
for it.
think about it, if we put a light at the top of the stairs, for example, then the next letter we would get would be from Greg and Lisa, you gotta turn that light off because we can't get sleep. So we gotta balance
Not
the
if it's
two.
motion censored.
Yeah,
Oh, if it's
right.
motion censored,
Yeah,
yeah.
in fact, I don't think you're supposed to have outdoor illumination that radiates up. I think it's supposed to radiate
Right.
down.
And actually, a motion sensor
would
one
make
might
more
chase them out of
sense.
there anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
That's a
right.
great idea, Mary.
Yeah.
I think the camera is probably a great idea, and I think it's a good start, but when you see them, it's not gonna give you the social security number and the name and everything
Right.
else. Who's gonna police it? Who are we
Right.
gonna have in this town
Well,
to go
that's-
down there and police it?
Well, yeah, and that's
Gotta
why,
have physical people doing it.
that's why I requested to
Sheriffs.
the sheriff that we increase the patrols, particularly at those times.
What about the possibility of having a camera that would record the license plates of their cars?
I
If
think-
there are
I-
vehicles.
If there's vehicles, I think the cameras will be placed that those would be,
Because that would
be
get us
captured.
close to being able to
And
ID,
the signs would probably,
potentially ID somebody.
that would deter some of them, but I will bet you the people that are going there are the same ones that go over and over again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would agree. I've seen the same problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
they found the can and they will.
Or they walk there and there's no car involved.
Yeah.
30 minutes to an hour. Because I call all the time.
It is no problem.
All right. Any other comment?
Well, I could go fire my gun off every now and then. Scare them.
Well, it is dangerous for the people who live there to confront them because they're just trying to get them off the property and it's dangerous for them.
All right.
How tall is the fence? I hate to go that route, but
The,
How tall
oh,
is the fence? I'm
the fence
trying to
between the
picture it.
properties are just a typical two-rail.
3 foot or
a
something?
Like
two-rail
4 feet.
split,
like 4 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
3.5.
Is it just the split rail?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you can
But,
see
you know,
everything.
to ask the
Yeah.
homeowners to put up a privacy fence.
That's a lot of money, it's $10,000.
Yeah, is.
Could we
I
apply
think,
for a grant that might put one in there for us?
Maybe.
If we had a
Some-
grant writer?
Something to look into.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, next on the agenda is John Anzavino has been kind enough to come speak to us. As you are all aware, we're looking for a new town administrator. Mr. Anzavino has been an Urbana resident since, what, 2013? Is that
2016.
2016? He's a highly regarded authority on municipal government administration and will speak to us regarding best practices for continuing the search for a new town administrator. Thank you so much for coming.
Mayor, members of council, thank you very much. I do have more than 3 minutes, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, well, thank you for...
You can take as long as you need, and
Well, this can get a little boring after a while, so,
we'll see who's got heart.
okay. Well, thank you for your time this evening. I am John Anzavino, and I was asked to brief the council on the components of a recruitment process for a new town administrator. Process that I
Having a hard time
understand...
hearing you.
Is this on?
Can you hear
It only records, John, it doesn't
Yeah.
And you
echo.
got to
Okay.
project.
Then I will, I'm very soft-spoken, so...
I think you're going to want to put it back, though, so that it's recorded.
It's on.
Sorry.
Okay, can you bend this
We
thing?
want-
Yeah.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Okay, you might want to talk to your sound company about that. Okay, I was asked to speak to the council about the recruitment process you've already embarked upon, as I understand it. And I made this offer back in July, and I'm glad I'm finally here in September. You're probably asking, what does a guy like me know about anything, know about recruitment of local government officials? Well, first of all, I was on the receiving end of recruitment processes. I was a county administrator and town manager here in the Commonwealth for about 25 years. Town of Warrenton, Caroline County, and Amelia County. Since then, I've served as interim county administrator in Nottoway, interim town manager in Bowling Green, and interim town manager up in Percival on 2 separate occasions, and executive director of the Warren County Economic Development Authority on an interim basis as well, all troubled communities where I've been tasked with solving problems. I also spent 16 years in the private sector working for a company that did a lot of public work, public sector work, and was responsible for our operation in conjunction with national executive recruitment of town managers, county administrators, city managers, and conducted over 220 recruitments for anything from the size of Raleigh, North Carolina, the city of Virginia Beach, down to Cape Charles and Exmoor here in Virginia. Worked with Fairfax County, the Virginia Resources Authority, Virginia Department of Transportation, Essex County, a number of communities in this area, including Gloucester. So I've got a little bit of experience in process and working with local governments in conjunction with finding the right fit for your local government. You know, you can say, oh, well, we need a town administrator. We have a job description. But it goes a little deeper than that to get the right person to fit your organization. And it's a process. And so what I'll do is outline tonight what the process is, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. But it's up to you as a council, as the governing body, to make the decisions that need to be made to determine what type of person you want to sit in what I call the big chair. You know that's the big chair, don't you? As the acting town manager. And as a citizen, I hope you'll, take what I tell you tonight and take it to heart, because it comes from a wealth of experience of successful searches, because as a company, we guaranteed our searches. If we didn't get it right, we had to go back and do it again. And I heard from the folks in Minneapolis about how we didn't do it right. On the receiving end, I was, as a candidate, often knew when a process was a good process, when a process wasn't so good, and how I felt as a candidate. What you want to leave your candidates with is a belief and a feeling that the town of Bowling Green is a first-class organization, whether or not they're successful in the recruitment process. And to do that, you need to very carefully consider them as a candidate, and you need to work through the process very deliberately as a governing body collectively. I prepared a handout for you folks, which is a takeaway. Thank you. Marjorie, if you could pass those down, there should be enough for all the council. Everybody have one? Okay. First step in the process is determining what do you want beyond the nuts and bolts of the job description. You know, what type of individual do you want to serve as your manager? Do you want a young manager? Do you want a mature manager? Do you want someone with experience in local government, or are you just looking for somebody to fill the seat? Somebody maybe with business experience. Now, I will tell you, having been on the private sector side and the public sector side, everybody wants business to run like a government, or government to run like a business. And government should be business-like, but it can't run like a business because you have completely different end products. You're not turning a profit, you're providing a service. So the individual you're looking for should be service-oriented. Looking at the sheet that I gave you, we have 3 columns: recruitment step, the time frame, which is a typical time frame, and suggested practices. You're already beyond, I think, the first step. You've got your job description. I think that's what you've been using. I haven't seen your notice wherever it's posted, but I think you've used that as the core of your notice for availability of the position. But do you want a full-time person or a part-time person? You know, many smaller local governments now are moving towards part-time folks with experience. You may have to pay a little bit more of a premium for that, but 3-4 days a week, well, will that do for the town of Urbana? You need to make that determination, at least in my opinion. What type of experience do they need? Planning? Do they need human resources? Do they need economic development experience? Do they need all of that? Do they need to be a generalist? What community challenges exist? There's, on the second page, I've listed some things that your former manager was engaged in, such as pool construction and those types of things, but, you know, what type of challenges do you have in the future that you're looking at? You know, is Urbana, well, you've got the water system and major water projects, so somebody with some knowledge in finance, maybe in, you know, infrastructure development would be worthwhile. But what type of challenges are you going to be facing? I had sent to the mayors, or Chris, I think you had sent to the mayor some time ago, what we call a community profile from Charlotte Courthouse, a comparably sized community in Charlotte County, Virginia. That's in South Side. It's not comparable at all to Urbana because we have more resources than they have. If you've ever been to Charlotte Courthouse, it's the courthouse, it's a couple of stores, and that's it. It's in the middle of a county of about 10,000 people in what was tobacco country and not a very active place. But the council put together a profile to recruit their next manager. And to be perfectly honest with you, and you know, exploring that with them, they haven't been successful. Primarily because maybe location, maybe because of salary, but it was a part-time position. Typically, putting the profile together takes about 30 days of the council getting together and hammering it out. You know, what do you want? And you use some demographics from the town, you put the budget information in there, something about staffing, stuff that somebody who is a candidate needs to know about the community. And you, as I said, you need to determine whether or not you need a full-time or part-time individual. Moving on, the recruiting period. You're into that, you've been into that. That's typically a 30-day period. At least that's the window we always used. If we didn't get a good pool of applicants, we would often extend it maybe out to 45 days, out to 60 days. Sometimes we had to open it up until filled, and we kept it open indefinitely. That was very seldom. You need to have in the process one individual designated to answer questions from candidates. Somebody who may want to know something about the town and has an interest in the town. One person should be the voice of the town council to provide that information so it's consistent. Your advertising venues, Virginia Municipal League, which I'm sure you've used, the Virginia Association of Counties, Virginia Women in Local Government, if you didn't know about that organization, that's a free ad. It goes out to every female public member of that organization who is in the public sector throughout the entire Commonwealth. Virginia Local Government Management Association, there is a professional association of which I'm a life member, which city managers, town managers, county administrators use that organization as well. Certainly the local newspaper, since we are in a rural part of Virginia, the town website, and other electronic platforms, LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, Indeed. Up in Bowling Green, they're using all of those because they're recruiting for a new town manager at the present time. But you have to also understand the type of environment we're in right now in recruiting local government staff. First of all, in the private sector, well, nationally, about this time last year, there were 3 jobs for every person. Okay? Right now, we're down to about 1.5, according to latest reports I've seen from economists. But there's still more of a demand for people than there are people to fill positions. We see it on our restaurants. We see it in local government at the police department level. We see it in wastewater and water treatment operators throughout the full spectrum of local government staffs. We see that. It's a problem to recruit people. So you need to be patient and you need to be aggressive if you really want to get a good person into the locality. Once you've closed that application period, typically local governments or their consultant, whomever they're using. They take about 30 days to review the applicants. And I would suggest, since this is a small town, that they be reviewed entirely by the entire council or by a council committee. Your personnel committee possibly could review those and make recommendations for interview to the town council. That's typically about a 2-week process, because the longer you keep people hanging, the more of an opportunity they have to move on to other positions or not to have an interest in the community. They'll lose interest in the community. You need to prepare for your interviews. First of all, you need to develop some standard questions. And we would suggest that the council, I would suggest that the council interview collectively as a governing body, so everybody can see the candidates at one time, interact with them, get to know them. And understand that those standard questions are so that you can evaluate one candidate versus the other and what their responses are, and you can gauge the depth of their experience. You've got to develop an interview schedule. You probably are going to be wanting to interview at least 3 or 4 candidates if you have that number in the pool. Ideally, you would have 5 to 7, but in today's environment, that may not be possible. But you need to establish a schedule, give the candidates notification of when their interview would be and when it will be, well in advance of the interview. Don't call them the day before and say, how about coming down and talking to us here in Urbanna, because that sends a signal about preparation, and folks want to be treated well in a recruitment process. You have to determine what the depth is of your background and interview and your reference checks, and then you've got to have somebody do them, and you got to reach deep. I will tell you that there are folks that float around candidate pools, from candidate pool to candidate pool to candidate pool, who really sound great on paper. They interview very well, but their past is not who they are. So you have to reach deep and find out really who they are. I've seen localities hire folks who they didn't do a good background check on and be embarrassed a little bit later on, and you certainly would want to avoid that. You want to make sure as you're developing your interview questions that you consult with your town attorney, because there are some questions that you have to not ask, you have to stay away from. You can't ask me where I go to church. You don't ask me if I can go to church or how many children I have. You can't say, boy, you got a funny last name, where are you from? Okay? You have to stay within the guidelines that are established in personnel law. Your interview period, as I mentioned, full council, about 2 weeks after you've determined who you want to interview, you begin notification. And I'd set aside at least an hour for each candidate so you can get to know them and you can gauge, who they are, how interested they are in the position, and what their experience is. After the interviews, you want to get together collectively and have a chat, among yourselves about, what did I see in this candidate? Well, this person's a little weak maybe in finance, but they seem to have some really strong economic development experience. That's kind of what we're looking for. You will not find a candidate who is well-rounded. I don't care if you're recruiting for Virginia Beach, City of Richmond, Chicago. You're not going to find a candidate who is proficient in every area to the degree that some council members will want them to be, because that's just not the nature of the job market. After you've made your choice, you need to reach out to the candidate immediately who you've chosen as your top candidate and begin negotiations. That's typically carried out between the mayor and the town attorney, or possibly a committee. But you have to have your benefits lined up and you have to have your salary range lined up going into that process to know what the limits are, so that if you have to negotiate with a candidate, you can do it quickly, you can do it smoothly, and you can come to an understanding that, yes, I will come to the town of Urbanna for X dollars and I will begin on this date. Once that agreement is reached verbally, it's not really an agreement until you have it confirmed in writing. And so you can let the council know if you're doing it by committee or if the mayor and the attorney are doing the negotiations. But it doesn't go outside the sphere of council until you've got it in writing and you're prepared to make the announcement. And then establishing a candidate's start date. Depends upon, where you go. You may have somebody, you decide that you want somebody who's retired in the immediate area, like Mr. Wheeler was. You can start right away. Okay. You may have somebody like they had up in Warsaw, Joe Quisenberry, who was working somewhere else, and we had to negotiate a start date for him so that he could leave his other job with enough notice and get his house in order, so to speak, so that he could make the move to the town of Warsaw. So typically, and you're already into the process, maybe month and a half into the process, you've got another 2.5 months to really work this out. If you have candidates, I don't know if you have candidates. What I've seen recently is smaller local governments aren't getting a really, what we call a deep or broad pool of candidates, just because of the nature of a small local government. So I've left you with some key points, which I won't go into, but I think I've spoken to all of them. It's a highly competitive market, even at this level. And so I wouldn't discourage you, but I would tell you that this is something local governing bodies don't do often. They don't really want to do very often. And because of that, sometimes they don't really take it on as zealously as they should, which results in a bad outcome. So I would encourage you to take this really seriously because, all the citizens of Urbanna are counting on you to hire a person to help manage the staff and make sure that your policies are carried out and the ordinances of the town are enforced. So with that, I've probably spoken too long, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I think that was great because it gives us a lot of information to work with. You were mentioning full or part-time. Would you say a town this size, it's typical for part-time people, or it depends on the staff that's supporting, or there's no way to gauge that? You try to make the decision based on who's applying.
I'm working in a small community now. It's double the size of the town of Urbanna. And we've got some serious financial and infrastructure problems and IT problems, which we're trying to sort out. I've got, over 40 years of experience dealing with problems in local government and helping resolve them. And so for me, I'm sitting there saying, okay, well, this is the way we fix this. This is what we need to fix this. And once we get it fixed, we move on to the next problem. When all those problems are resolved and the local government is back at a level where they're operating like they should on a daily basis, it may be that they only need a part-time individual, or if they have an experienced individual. Somebody who's come out of retirement in local government, maybe not as a manager, maybe in economic development, human resources, but wants to be a manager, might be able to do it under VRS. You can do up to 32 hours, or maybe 30 hours. And, you might be able to fill the position with that type of individual. On the other hand, if you have a younger person who has to learn as they go, and you have to realize they'll be learning as they go. Joe Quisenberry, who has done a fabulous job up in Warsaw. Warsaw, I used to drive through there, officiate high school football from Fredericksburg in Warrenton when we lived up in Warrenton. It was not a very pleasant community.
Mm-mm.
I think if you've driven through Warsaw recently, you've seen it reborn. It's a very vibrant community, and they've come up with several creative ideas to make it even better. I joke with Joe about Warsaw that they rent kayaks. They're not even on the river. Okay? And they're making money off it. But if you want that type of individual, he was identified. He was in a candidate pool which was very small, not very strong, because it was Warsaw. And I did my background on him when I recruited him. He was a student at VCU. He worked his way through VCU as a night auditor at a hotel. He he participated in his fraternity. And when he graduated, he went to Patrick County, which was his home county, and worked a little bit in economic development until the county board of supervisors closed the position down because of budget constraints. And he was looking for a job. And so I said, well, this guy's got some local government experience. Let me talk to him. And when I talked to him, I could tell that there was some hunger there, that he was a hard worker. And it was evident from his resume that, you know, if you go to college and you work at nights as a night auditor at a hotel, I would never do that. But he did, and he made it through. And so he was the type of individual I thought would be a good fit. And he has been, and he's done a fabulous job up there. I'm surprised he's still there because he's probably destined for bigger and better things. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, it depends what you have in your candidate pool. And, you know, and it could be a part-time person if it's an experienced individual. It probably, if you're going to go for somebody who's less experienced, you may want to consider full-time. Maybe too long of an answer to a short question.
No.
It was an excellent answer.
Yes.
But I've got a follow-on question for you. What attracted him to Warsaw? In other words, why did he decide on Warsaw? Do you know?
Well, he was looking for a job.
Just a job?
It was an opportunity. He saw it as an opportunity. He met with the council, and it was a sales job on the part of the governing body, as well as, you know, me as the recruiter. You know, what are the possibilities here? And Warsaw is a little bit bigger than Urbanna. They have a police department, which was in shambles at the time that he was hired. Had a little bit of a public works department, a little bit of a public utilities department, but not much else. But he knew that as a young person with no experience as a manager, this would be a place where he could probably learn. And he has learned very quickly. So you just have to find the right person to fit your community. And a younger person right now, you know, I'm mentoring a graduate student. I'm a MPA graduate from University of Georgia. And I'm mentoring a student in the MPA program now. And I'm not seeing a lot of interest in local government on her part, and I'm not getting a lot of from my friends still in the business throughout the state. We're not seeing a lot of local younger people wanting to enter local government. So you got to find the right person, and Joe was just the right person.
Maybe we could lasso Joe Quisenberry to Urbanna.
Well, he'd be a good one to
Absolutely.
get into the corral, but the fact of the matter is, I think he may be a little bit beyond your salary
Right.
expectations.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Just a bit.
Your salary expectations have to be reasonable. Mount Jackson, if anybody's familiar with Mount Jackson, over in Shenandoah County on Interstate 81, town of about a couple thousand, maybe below the threshold of, you know, being a larger town, which is 3,500, where you got to adhere to all state regulations. They just hired a young manager from the Shenandoah Economic Development Partnership. Had no local government experience. He worked in economic development for a regional organization. They're paying him $85,000, and he is full-time. They're a little bit larger than Urbanna. Of course, they got the challenges of Interstate 81. They've got an interchange there, and they've got a little bit probably more resources because they've got restaurants and hotels from that are pretty full from the interstate.
Can I?
Yeah.
Are there any communities in the state of Virginia or nationwide that are thinking out of the box in the sense that they're not using an administrator part-time or full-time? And if so, how are they doing that?
Well, there are various forms of government, and one is the strong mayor form of government. Now, you'd have to change your form of government, but because of by charter, as granted by the General Assembly, it's a council administrator form. But, you know, the city of Chicago doesn't have a city manager. They've got a strong mayor. City of New York has a strong mayor. Now, they have chief administrative officers. City of Richmond does not have a city manager. They have a chief administrative officer. The mayor essentially is, the city manager who tells the chief administrative officer, really what needs to be done. So it is done. And there are smaller local governments, primarily, if you go out to Southwest Virginia, I worked when I was doing credit analysis for the Virginia Resources Authority on behalf of our company. We worked with a town in far southwest, and we were doing credit analysis on applications for loans to replace utilities. And it was just like having your credit checked through Moody's and given a bond rating. And so there was this one community, it had 2 staff, it had a water system, and it had a broken down dump truck out by the utility pipes, and that was it. They didn't have a manager. They governed through the council process. So it is done. By statute in Virginia, if you have the council administrator, council manager form of government, you don't have a manager or administrator, it falls to the mayor to serve in that capacity until you hire somebody. So you could defer hiring somebody, and certainly the mayor could be your de facto administrator. But, you've got to question whether or not he wants to do it, how long he would do it, and really, how that affects him as mayor and how it affects his personal life. Because, if you're a good manager or administrator, it takes a good chunk of time out of your life, and it's a worrisome. A lot of folks think that they can just step into the process and, be a manager or administrator. Well, you're constantly under scrutiny publicly. You go to the grocery store, you go to the restaurant, you're peppered with questions. You're criticized all the time by your governing body, by the general public. And things that go wrong are always in your lap. Things that go right are always in your lap. And that's the way it should work. But it's a tough job. It's not, as I tell younger folks, it's not a job for the faint of heart these days, particularly with in the electronic age we live in, because communication is key to being a good administrator with your governing body and with the public. And communication and items move very quickly today. Move at the speed of light. Now, I found that out. I was doing a search down in Clinton, North Carolina. And I was talking to the outgoing city manager who was going up to Western North Carolina to a bigger city. And I said, how do you communicate with your governing body? He says, all the time. And he says, very, very carefully. I said, well, give me an example. He said, well, we had a fire at 3 o'clock in the morning downtown. And he said, by the time they woke up in the morning, they had a text that we had a fire downtown, what the extent of the damage was, and that, everything was in order with the fire department. You do that because as a manager or as an administrator, because you don't want your governing body to be surprised, because the last thing that you want your governing body to be is surprised, because then it comes back on you.
I ask a follow-on to Larry's question, and that is, are there resources for small communities or anyone who wants to have a consultant to advise, for instance, an interim administrator, or somebody who is in a temporary kind of role, and that you're gonna need some expert advice? What kinds of resources are available?
There is a company here in the Commonwealth. It's called the Berkeley Group. It's made up
How do you spell
of
Berkeley?
Berkley.
Okay, I thought maybe it was different. Okay.
It was started by 2 guys. One was the Public Works Director for the city of Harrisonburg, and the other was a planning director, maybe for Harrisonburg, I don't recall. But they sign up retired managers and administrators to serve on an interim basis for local governments. They also do planning work. They do human resources work. They do a lot of work. There's another group, which is my old group. It was Springstead, but now it is Baker Tilly. It's an international company. And it's probably not going to be focused on a town the size of Urbanna. And a lot of the executive recruitment groups and technical assistance groups have been absorbed by bigger companies since I left the field back in 2017. So there aren't a lot of Springsteads around, which we worked with a lot of smaller local governments. But in Virginia, I'd say the Berkeley Group would be your best bet to contact those folks.
Thank you.
Can we anticipate that if we contacted a group like that, that we'd be paying quite a premium for to cover their overhead and stuff? You're not just paying the individual, but you're,
Yeah.
probably adding, what, 15, 20% to the,
Yeah, if you're looking for an interim,
yeah.
they do have a premium beyond the hourly rate of the individual. And I know Charlotte Courthouse, the Berkeley Group, I was told offered them that service, and they said, no, we can't afford it.
Yeah, that was the reason for the question.
Yeah. They also do executive recruitment, and a typical executive recruitment for any local government runs between $25,000 to $30,000, and that's with a guaranteed, position. The position being guaranteed, that person will come in and work for a good long time. So, there's an investment you would have to decide you'd need to make. Now, in this part of the state, it used to be that we had some really good folks. We have a lot of retired managers and administrators in this area, particularly over in Lancaster. One of them recently, within the last year, passed away, so he's, of course, no longer available. There were two guys over there, Dave Whitlow, who was a very good friend of mine, who was the city manager down in Morehead City, North Carolina, town manager of Ashland. Dave's kind of out of the business. And then Bill Whitley, who was the county administrator in Gloucester for a number of years, lives over in Matthews. And Bill, on an interim basis, if you contacted him, I'm not sure he'd have an interest. He came, and when we needed an interim executive director for the Economic Development Authority here in the county, which I'm chair, Bill came over and helped us out until we hired our part-time executive director. He has also worked, Bill's worked with the town in the past. Mm-hmm. He did some human resources work for you. I don't think he served as interim, but he did some human resources work. He's a really good guy, but I'm not sure he'd be willing to come out of retirement again.
I know Bill. Yeah. And I think he did some work on an interim basis for Middlesex County as well.
I think you're right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's the one that came to town to work on the job descriptions
Yeah.
in 2019.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah. Maybe others have questions, but I really appreciate this.
Any other questions?
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, and realize
Thank you.
realize that
Yeah,
the advice you
I
get.
apologize for not getting you in here sooner.
Oh, that's okay. The advice you get and the information you receive is only good as what you pay for it. Okay?
No,
So-
I don't think so.
So, John, if you happen to hear of somebody, you can send them our way.
If I hear of anybody, but it's really hard finding folks right now. I do it on a periodic basis when called upon, but what I'm hearing is it's very difficult because folks who retire from what we call the profession they usually don't want to come back into the profession. I dedicated my life to public service in one way or the other, and it gave me a good life, and I'm very happy with the life that I had. Some folks, though, when they're done, they're done.
Right.
So, if I hear of anybody, I'll certainly let you all know. But I haven't heard of anybody recently, particularly in this area.
Or maybe you could just go ahead and send your resume in to Ms.
I'm-
Arard.
First of all, I'm retired 2 or 3 times.
One
and-
can always try and hope.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to be an administrator in this community because I live in the
Right.
community, and I just want to be anonymous in the community. Because, when I was in Warrenton, I was on duty 24/7,
Right.
and in Caroline 24/7, and in Amelia 24/7. Those days are over.
You think?
Thank you so much.
So,
Thank you, John.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Re-
you.
Really, really appreciate
please
it.
feel free to ask.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
Thanks
you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You dropped the mic.
Yep.
All right. Next on the agenda is my report. Some of these things have been covered. The first one on mine was discussing the security cameras. Next, Museums of Middlesex gave the town a $5,000 check for the Scottish Factor store. It's a portion of an annual grant that they got from the county. And like I said, our portion was $5,000, and that has been deposited, right, Michelle? The next item was the UBI presentation, and we've covered that one. Additionally, with respect to the UBI, they've agreed to stay on as a 501c3, and we have collaborated so that they can be a conduit for town. If I make a mistake here, you can correct me. I'm waiting for the nod.
We are now, UBI is now in charge of raising donations for the town pool, and the finance committee for the town pool is our committee of UBI now.
Right, and so it's going to act as a conduit for that project and projects going forward, so that we have access to a 501c3, and as I had explained before, that's beneficial for tax deductibility, but also particularly with respect to required minimum distributions for retirement accounts like IRAs, because you get more bang for your buck if they go through a 501c3.
When was that decided? Was that a council decision? Was council
It
in
was-
on that?
it
or
was-
just-
It was something that the project funding committee was working with them as and we had all discussed, and was mentioned at the last meeting, that having a 501c3 as a conduit for donations was beneficial to the
Right, but I didn't know the
projects going
decision
forward.
had been made for the UBI. That's what I'm asking, is when that was decision, that's all, when the decision was made.
It was in the works at the last meeting, and it was more formalized recently. And they're still an independent organization, but it provides us with a conduit for those funds. Moving on, the car and truck on Watling Street outside of Beth's house has been moved. The truck that was at the gas station is gone. So we're moving on some of those things.
Yes.
Department of Transportation completed their work at Colorado and Cross Street and paved Cross Street down to Kent Street. And it appears, after the last couple of storms, that that's working. They also paved sections of Kent Street, but the Buxtons were quick to point out that they didn't pave at the corner of Rappahannock and Kent Street. And I have had a conversation with I can't remember the guy's name at this point, but anyhow, I called VDOT. I talked to Ron Peaks to thank him for the work that he had already done, and tell him that if they had a truck in the neighborhood, that Kent Street at Rappahannock was also in similar need of help. Tammy can verify whether you've been contacted about cleaning up the curbs and giving us a price for that to get the grass off the curb. Done? Okay.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Okay, excellent, okay.
Wonderful.
What you might consider doing is having town residents go out and sweep up the rubble. I mean,
Okay.
town residents could help take care of the town, and that would be a.
Yeah, I noticed it was dying for sure. Boundary line adjustment paperwork has been completed. The judge has signed off on it, so we are currently in the town of Urbanna. So that is done, okay?
Good.
Bill, can I ask a question real quick? HRSD, are they gonna make these necessary repairs and stuff out here too?
They're supposed to, and they're supposed to have it done by the Oyster Fest. I don't know that that's, you know,
Because
that's
it's pretty
their
bad in
timeline.
some places.
Yes, it absolutely is.
We're gonna have a
And they-
problem.
And they knew going in that it was gonna happen, which, with respect to dovetailing with Oyster Fest, I've had a conversation with the people at Docks of the Bay, and they're gonna hold off doing the living shoreline and marina repair until after Oyster Fest, so that
Okay.
Joyce and company don't have to worry about moving boats around or worrying about losing the slip rentals for the Oyster Fest at the marina.
Good.
And then the last item is that, as everybody knows, Mitchell Map is a real treasure for this town. When the map was restored, there was a collection of files that were stored on a private hard drive that crashed, and as my understanding, that the only printable version is at the printer. But I was able, by going through some paperwork, to find the original conservator and had contact with her, and she sent me copies on a thumb drive of all the original paperwork and all the original pictures, including some high-resolution quadrants that Dave Lipscomb is working on putting them together so that the town has a printable file. That set of information is now stored on the common drive, backed up to the cloud, and is on 2 separate drives so that we've got it protected going forward as a real asset. Larry has started to reach out to Middlesex High School first for the history people there, or if they don't want to pick it up, maybe Christ Church, to create a binder that shows before and after pictures, statements of how the thing was done, what the process was, that we can have available at the museum so we can thumb through those things, and people that have an interest in that can see what it took to get this done, like I said, including before and after pictures. So I think that's great to have that stored on the common drive of the town. And I think that completes my report.
I have a question.
Okay.
You're doing such a good job
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
town administrator.
No.
Yeah.
The piping that they're putting under the ground, HRSD,
Yeah.
these are the pipes that are gonna hook in to the pipes that are coming from Saluda, from Cook's Corner, that are gonna take a left and go all the way down to Hartfield, and then go across Piantank River Bridge, and then cut over.
To Matthews and over to Yorktown,
Right.
correct.
And so this is the right size and everything, we're getting it now,
That,
right?
yeah, that, this work that's being done is the work that is supposed to deal with the Linden Street pumping station that replaces the one at Tabor Park, that pushes everything away from Urbana, down, like you said, across the Piantank to the York River, and it will eliminate the Saluda station, and it will eliminate the Urbanna treatment station, and that will, as Bill Smith pointed out years ago, the creek has a real issue with high phosphate and high nitrogen because HRSD has used swaps of those from cleaner plants. It's not that it's hazardous waste, but the nitrogen and phosphorus content of what goes into Urbana Creek has been hazardous, and it is the reason you can't fish above the bridge. And so that creek will start to self-clean once this project is completed, which is slated for, I think, they said 2024, but I think it's going to be probably 2026 before it gets done.
My questions are more about the roads. Right, hopefully, this is it. We've
Yes,
got it now. This is it.
yes, and typical of the way things work, they paved the road and now they dug it up.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
we'll be dealing with the patch until the next time they decide to pave the road.
So we're way ahead of the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the work that is currently being done on Virginia Street and Cross Street that is making it so challenging for businesses, when is that to be completed?
Yes.
That's what I was afraid of.
I think it's.
They're supposed to be doing it by Oyster Fest, right?
Is
And-
that-
And
okay.
that's their
So that's the
timeline.
part
That's
that-
the goal, yes.
Yes, that's the goal. And
Well,
they're
that's
supposed,
getting
and they're
closer
supposed to
all
put
the
the,
time.
and they're supposed to put the bump outs back, and they're supposed to repair the sidewalks, and they're supposed to get it all.
Repaved? Does it get repaved?
It's not gonna be, it's not gonna, I'm sure, be a top coat, it's gonna be a patch. It would be
It's
my
already
bet.
patched.
I'd be really surprised if it's anything but level, but 2 colors.
It's too bad.
All right?
Thank you.
The next issue is it's something that comes up periodically that we've talked about, and I bring it to council's attention, and that is, it takes a lot of time for members of the staff to prepare the packet for the town meetings, and in an effort to utilize both the staff and the council and town resources, we are suggesting that the town go to a once-a-month meeting that may be longer, but we only have to come up with one packet. And that frees up, I can tell you, Martha worked most of the day to get this stuff done. And I don't think, after sitting in two chairs for a month plus, I can tell you that the staff here really works their tails off. They're doing stuff all the time. And anything we can do to take those tasks off their plate is helpful, because it allows them to do something else that isn't getting done. And so the recommendation would be to move the town council to one meeting a month, start a little early, understand that it's going to go a little longer probably, but to do that going forward. And so that's the recommendation. Do we have a discussion?
I have a discussion. I think it's a disservice to the town taxpayer. We're elected to do a job. We very rarely have a true work session. I think today is really what feels like more of a work session other than just two meetings. When you come in for your one monthly meeting, how are you going to know what you're working on? Is it just going to be a bunch of emails, phone calls?
Well, most
that
of the
kind of thing, so
most
that-
of the things that we're doing are being done at a committee level, and so you'd have committee meetings, that generate the work product to be reported on, and then discussion of council at the time of the meeting.
So you're going to get it 1 month, get all your information that you should have been getting during a work session at 1 month, and then the next month you're going to vote on it, or move it, or pass it on to whatever we need to do.
Well, the communication obviously has to go on during the course of the month so that people know what, and that's another thing that we were talking about amongst the staff today, is that we need to have a time certain that we get information that's going to be in the packet, so that they've got time to get all that information out to the council members
And public.
and the public in time for people to have opinions, to know where we're going at the meetings.
We still have an avenue, Madam Attorney, for call meetings.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Council members,
Yes.
right? Is it?
Yeah.
And work sessions.
Yes.
And work session, but 2 council members can call a meeting, isn't that right?
I believe that it is 3, but you're
Maybe it's
correct
3.
that several council members can,
Right.
or the mayor can call it.
Did the mayor, or, yeah, I was thinking 3, the mayor or
Well, the
3
mayor can
council
probably do it
members
by himself,
could,
but I mean,
if it's necessary, call a special call
Special
meeting.
meeting.
We just have to give, 3 days written notice?
3 days, business days notice.
Notice, yes.
I only know of one that we ever had, but we've always had 2 meetings, so, but if there is a need for an extra meeting, then we
We can have it.
call.
Yes.
I think.
And
it's
I
an
thought
excellent
there was a
idea.
time when you were on that they did just 1 meeting a month. No? It's always been 2?
No, I think you're right, Sean. Yeah,
That was my recollection.
Way back, it was just 1 meeting a month, yeah. And then they went to a business meeting. It's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
You can
I'm not-
also recess and reconvene if you think you got something.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, right.
Yes.
That's right.
That's another point. If
It's a
it
good-
looks like it needs to be tabled, you
No?
could recess and, no?
No, yeah.
No, you
it's-
can.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true. And this is something we can always reassess, I guess, if we find that it's not working.
Madam Attorney, you were looking kind of
Do you want to weigh in?
question what Shalemi said, is that, I mean,
It's on.
we can recess,
Even if you recess, you still have to post the notice.
okay.
And
Right.
so I would recommend that the notice requirements remain the same, the 3 days to give.
Right, well, I mean, we could make it for the following week.
Right.
And that's, speaking of the attorney, that's another, she drives from Richmond. And so, you know,
It's all about me.
look, we try to make it as much about you as possible. But it is a consideration, that, because that also goes with the rest of the staff. Michelle and Martha and Roy are here, you know, for long days, twice a month, where for their time, it would be once a month.
Well, I'm not trying to sound rude when I say this, so please don't take it that way, but everybody knew when they took the job, we had 2 meetings and they would be late on a Thursday night, twice a month. So I'm not that I'm trying to diminish that at all. But like I said, this is the first time I feel like we've had a work session at all, to where we sat and talked and figured out and know what's ready for the meeting itself, when the votes need to happen, when the meeting can go pretty quick, because we never sit here and talk like this. It's all boom, 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 gone. We still don't know the next time when we get here what's going on.
Well, no, we do.
Larry, you remember work sessions when we sat there in the middle of the room at a table and everybody faced one another and
Right.
we talked and we did these things. Now we're not. We're just having basically just 2 straight meetings. We just sit here, we follow a thing. We don't sit here and talk. This is what we're doing now. We're sitting here talking. The public seeing us interact, seeing how we work together
That's good.
on issues, and that's what we need.
We can still do that in
Why-
one meeting,
why not?
can't we?
No, we can't. Or
Why can't we?
How are we gonna have we're gonna have a work session. We may have something we need to find out more information on, get public input, and then the next meeting, at that true town meeting, then we can vote on it, give them answers, what have you. We can't do that if we're gonna do it basically all at the same time.
It doesn't seem to me that in most of the meetings that we have twice a month, that anything moves that fast anyway, from a meeting, the first meeting, like, you know, the working session, that, see, it seems more like a meeting, but the working session at the beginning of the month, to 2 weeks later, to the actual council meeting.
Because there's not truly ever any conversation like this. So we don't know. You know, I didn't know that Sandy and Ms. Greenwood had worked out, you know, this with and I'm sorry, Sandy, I didn't, you know, I'm not trying to offend you by any means. I just didn't know that.
Right, it was discussed at a
So,
It was.
and it very well may have been. I knew it was a 501c3, but I didn't realize that it was the UBI.
But as a
So-
council member, I don't know why I need to know that.
Well,
mean-
but you do need to know. Why don't you need to know?
Well,
Yeah. I don't see why.
I don't see why, I mean.
But the public
The-
needs to know, and you represent the public.
Well, but the object of this thing is for them to collect money,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna micromanage how
It's not micromanaging to know what's happening.
Well, I have a motion I'd like to put on floor.
Okay.
That we go to one meeting a month.
Larry?
Wait.
So there's a, oh,
Well,
Let him finish.
I'm not sure it's the same one you got. That we go to one meeting a month for 6 months, and then we reevaluate the thing.
Actually, you can only do it through December, because in January, you'll have another organizational meeting and you'll set
Okay.
your meeting schedule.
Well,
Okay.
let's do it to December, and maybe there's some merit, in what Marjorie's saying, you know,
We'll see.
and.
Maybe.
And, well, that's my motion.
Well,
You made a motion, I second your
And
motion.
really, if you think about it, October is the only month we're cutting out, because November
true.
and December,
We
we're
only
already
have one
scheduled with
meeting
one meeting
anyway.
a month.
And then we'll bring it back up in January, is that right?
Yeah?
The first meeting in January, yes.
Yep.
And we'll decide then, see how it works.
Also, it might be a good idea to let when we get a new administrator in here, for him to decide, is it something that
And that,
that we need 2 meetings? You know, we do need to talk, we do need to work.
Yep.
Or the one meeting will work, and he's based that on staff and his overview of what's happening with the town.
all good points.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
Mr. Tuning, is that a motion to approve the resolution in your packet as presented? Because the law requires a resolution to change the meeting date and time. And that resolution cancels the next meeting in September and then establishes one meeting
where's
for
that?
October, November, and December.
Yes.
Yeah, which is, yeah.
Yeah, and Sandy seconded.
You want me to read it?
No,
No.
if you just move approval of it.
Okay. I've made the motion. I think there's a second.
I made a second.
You take it from there, man.
All right. Any further discussion?
And the start time is 6 o'clock.
Start time is 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock or 6:30?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Before we finish the motion, it says 6 o'clock on the, or no, it says 6:30 on the resolution. Do we want to do 6:30?
No, it just,
Mine says 6
It
o'clock.
says 6.
6 o'clock.
Oh, I've got a different version.
The resolution says 6, so it's in the packet.
All right.
I changed it to 6.
Oh, you changed it.
Isn't that funny?
That's what it was originally.
Maybe we ought to discuss that. What
okay.
time do you want to do it?
Being to second
6 is the
Thursday.
resolution.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be next. All right, so we've got a motion that's been seconded. Discussion is over. We'll have a vote. Alana Courtney,
Yes.
Sandy Sturgill,
Yes.
Mary Hanson?
Yes.
I say yes. Larry Tuning?
Yes.
Beth Justice?
Yes.
Marjorie Austin?
Yes.
All right, that passes.
January.
Next item, street sign replacement. I'm looking at two people in the audience. Something that has, come back and forth to this council time and time again, but they don't get better. And in fact, they're getting worse, is street sign replacement. And Christiane Zavino and Don Dreyer have multiple times approached sign companies. We've got a thick binder of requests and prices, but the bottom line is that based on the last prices, it looks like the signs themselves will be probably $6,000, signs and poles, but that doesn't include taking the old poles out and putting the new ones in. And so a guesstimate of a range is probably going to be, I'm thinking, no less than $12,000, and it could be twice that by the time we're all said and done with new prices and with construction costs. And so the reason for the question, and this isn't a vote to do it, this is a vote to see, or try to get a feeling as to whether this council has the appetite to actually move forward to replace the street signs, because if that's the case, then I will reach out to the people that they found the best prices on the last time and try to get bids to bring to council to vote for it. But that looks like it's going to be, the fiscal impact is going to be somewhere in that range. I think a minimum of $12,000. Steve Hutton,
Where did you get 6,000 for poles and signs?
that was from the stuff that you gave me.
No.
No.
I gave you, that might be old. The two that I revisited
Okay,
all day yesterday, one is 7,320,
okay,
one is 7,965.
okay.
Okay?
So,
So push that up a little closer to
right, so it still
8,000.
doesn't, it doesn't change the numbers that much. The question is how much
I don't know.
so you're verifying, it's probably not gonna be less than $12,000 by the time we get them in, and it could be
Yeah.
significantly more.
And then you still haven't, how are you doing that? You still, your labor and your cement.
But that's what I'm saying.
and
Right.
That's why it could
Is
be
that all the
$25,000.
signs or just ones that are
your-
missing?
Yes.
You know,
No,
All the signs.
all the signs, so that they're uniform,
in town will
new
be-
signs, and the pole, and talking to Steve Hutton, trying to use the old poles doesn't make much sense, because they're in bad condition. The caps are all rusted shut, so you end up spinning the pole rather than taking the top off. So it would be a complete redo of the signs.
I think it's needed.
I think we need to get a bid, and that's
Yeah.
what the recommendation is to try to get some bids and to decide.
Right.
when
We're
we
not
did
committing to
MIT's
decide.
program, the most expensive thing was the pole, not putting them in the ground. We were able to get a local person to put them in the ground. then I think he's probably still available.
Right,
But,
and so that
It was
would be
very
a good reason.
inexpensive to put it on the ground, but it was, the poles were expensive.
Right,
Huh.
They are
So,
galvanized steel.
yeah, that's what
Yeah.
you want to do.
yeah.
So did you just say the signs and the poles were it was 8,000?
Roughly
This
8,000.
one that I.
Okay, but it is signs and poles.
Signs and poles, but shipping costs for the poles on this one was, and I didn't get it on the other.
Was
So
what?
estimate that. Now, the third one he's talking about that Don has already talked to, we did not get back to them. They are locally closer, they're Yorktown.
Yorktown.
So that may be a little bit better for us.
And it may be that those of us with trucks could go down and pick them up.
Right.
How many signs are there?
7,000, it sounds.
You're
extremely
looking at for the whole, and we've done this
They
over
map
and
them
over and
all.
over, gone back and visited, a total of 63 signs. okay?
Really?
Now, that number can be knocked down a little, and once, when we get ready to put in an order, there's the discussion that needs to be taken care of about, start at Cindy Bend and go down Rappahannock. Are you gonna want cross Rappahannock for each thing? Rappahannock, you don't need it. If you did at the beginning,
Middle and end.
maybe at Marston where the church is, again, say Rappahannock, Marston,
Howard.
and, well, maybe
And
not
then-
even Howard, just go on
Howard's
down
close
to
to
Ober.
Marston.
and-
Well,
Marjorie
yeah.
wants Harwood, so.
No, it's just, no, I'm just thinking there's two Howards.
And
Yeah.
the companies can advise us on that, but I
Right.
went ahead and counted
But-
each intersection and sign.
But to move on, the
That
question
seems
is,
pretty good.
it sounds like this council has the
I
appetite
think we
to
should
move forward.
with it.
and
Well,
put a
as
bid.
much, also as much work as they put into this in the last few years, getting
Over
bids,
and over updating.
getting bids. So I think we just need to go ahead and
Yeah,
take
I
the plunge.
thought Don was going to cry when I asked him to get another
Oh,
bid.
I know.
I don't know if he was gonna cry, but he was probably ready to.
As Marjorie has pointed out, at some point, we could sell the old sign.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
That's
Yes.
we
right,
want,
and
we
I've
want to
already
do
had
that as
people
an
asking.
auction.
Yeah.
We could
auction.
sell the old signs,
Yep.
and Don
Auction
pointed out we
off.
might be able to get scrap metal
For the polls.
for the poles.
Yes, yeah.
But anyhow, so
Right.
that, it looks like the appetite is there, so that will give me
Well,
something to do tomorrow.
I said $25 for the signs, and nobody blinks an eye, so.
Yep. All right.
Can I bring this up now? I know it's not the right time, but we need a sign telling us where our marina is.
Yeah.
Why we
I've-
don't have a sign pointing to the town marina?
There is a
is beyond
sign
me.
There's a
sitting
sign
out
right
there.
There's a sign that you can see from Cross Street,
No,
but
there's a sign outside this building that was going to be put up at the bottom of Virginia Street.
Yeah,
And the work was done at the Virginia Street, so it just has to be put
Oh,
up,
it's
Okay.
gonna go at that intersection.
right there.
Okay.
yeah.
The other thing about a sign, like pointing to the marina, there is, there's that at Cook or Cross Street and Virginia. There is the little constellation of little makeshift, this is there, that's there.
That's there, yeah.
One of the things that Urbana Main Street put in their Community Vitality Grant application was for a new sign, a wayfinding sign at that
Yeah.
intersection. And anyway, we know that we have been awarded $5,500, but they have not told us what for yet. So we don't know
Okay.
what part of our application the award is for. Maybe it's for the sign, I don't know. But that was one of the things we put in for, was
Yeah,
a
well, down
wayfinding
at
sign.
the end of the street.
We need
I
a
know
sign
it's
for
used
Tabor Park,
crazy.
too.
End of the street, they've got it sitting out there.
No, that one is, but when you come down
Yeah.
Virginia Street to where you get to Oyster Road, that
Right.
intersection is very confusing.
Yeah,
Well, that's,
Real
that's,
confusing. They turn to go down to the restaurant
Right.
on that road because that's where GPS tells them to. You want to go to a restaurant, you come down here and you turn there. And then they have to back out and then they come, it's
Yeah.
just,
oh, boy.
it's bad.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
we need a sign right there that points.
They could go to the
a little
restaurant that
sign
way
that
if they
says
open the
marina.
gate.
things we hope to correct.
That one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will move forward with that. Next item is, we have one opening on the Planning Commission, and the recommendation is that Lewis Hall, who I think most of the people know, has said that he's interested in that position. His term would expire at the end of next year, and it's the recommendation that Lewis Hall be appointed to the vacant seat on the Planning Commission.
Well, I'd love to make that motion. I think Lewis would be a good addition to the planning
Okay.
commission. So
I'll
I'll make the,
Marjorie made the motion.
Mary seconded.
Mary Hanson has seconded. Any discussion?
We were fortunate to have him do it.
Yep. All right.
Lewis would have been here, but he's on vacation, so.
Good for Lewis.
And he applied. He did.
He did, yeah. We've got an
apply.
application for him.
So, yep.
All right. So, no further discussion? Alana Courtney?
Yes.
Sandy Sturgill?
Yes.
Mary Hanson?
Yes.
I say yes. Larry Tuning?
Absolutely.
Beth Justice?
Yes.
Marjorie Austin?
absolutely.
On to the next item. And that is the pool name. It has been for a long time the recommendation of the pool committee that the pool honor the Marshall family, and it's their recommendation that the Urbana pool be named the Marshall Community Pool for a family that has been part of the deep fabric of this community for quite some time, and they've been very generous to the town.
Well, I'll make a motion to name the Urbana pool the Marshall Community Pool.
Do I have a second on that?
Yeah, I'll second.
Sandy Sturgill seconded. Any discussion?
Yes. I think it's great. However, what if we still get a major donor who
Well,
wants to have their name somehow reflected?
I
There'll
just
have
think
to be
that
another
we've got to
reflection.
get past that now because
Yeah, I
we're
think.
running out of time.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
see.
we're running out of
Okay.
time, and if,
Okay.
and you could always say, we thank Altria for their generous donation to the
Sponsored by or
Marshall, to the
something.
Marshall
Okay.
Yeah.
Community
Yeah.
Pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
We can do a workaround.
yeah, it's a family that came here in 1929. and-
1929.
Yeah, that's when
Pretty good.
they bought the drugstore from Elliot Richardson's father and made it into a gold mine.
Yep.
And a contribution to the town of Urbana that,
Yep.
They're a heck of a contribution to our town.
and they're still here and they're
Yep.
still going. And I think Richard and Tommy and Doc and Lucy and all these people that are gone now, this is a great tribute to them and what they've
Absolutely.
brought to our community.
And they're always willing to help you. When you go in there, the whole time I was sick, medication was right there, waiting, ready. Never had any issue. They're just great people.
All right, further discussion? That being said, the vote, Alana Courtney.
Yes.
Sandy Sturgill.
Yes.
Mary Hanson.
Yes.
I say yes. Larry Tuning.
Yes.
Beth Justice.
Yes.
Marjorie Austin.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any other public comment? Anything on the sheet back there?
If anybody else wants to speak, go ahead and sign up now and then go to the. Nobody.
Nope. Okay. Announcements? Roy?
As we have discussed before, the well has been completed up on the hill. They have to do some testing on it this next week. Originally, they were going to pump at the full volume for 72 hours, but because the well is as good as it is, they only have to pump for 48 hours to test its capacity and everything else. The only difficulty is you've got a lot of water. It's gonna come down the hill, not on our neighbor's property, but on the Mullins property into the field back here, and it's gonna run out in the road to the storm drain. So when you see on, what's this, Waverly, some water, it's not because anything broke, it's because they're doing these testings. But they're very satisfied with the results that they have for this well.
Do we have an idea when they're
Yeah.
going to do that?
It's gonna start on Monday morning
Okay.
for 48 hours.
Will it have an impact on our water pressure?
No.
Okay.
'Cause during that time, we're using the old well on Bonner Street. Reluctantly, but necessarily.
And it has to be operated manually, not with a pump, but we've got to turn the switch on manually because of the way that it's all constructed. So your former councilman, Bill Smith, and I are turning it on and off every 3 hours to make sure you got plenty of water.
Thank you.
Great. I would like to say that Second Saturday is over and done. We had a great year. Beth had we had helped with the bands, getting the bands there, and all the volunteers. We so appreciate everything, and the Oyster Festival. We made our last contribution to the our 50/50 to the pool fund of a big $69, but I guess every little dollar helps, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
we've made 3 donations at this point to the pool. So, but again, thank everyone that came, and Sandy and everybody, Michelle, for everything you did. You've been awesome. So, and Don he's been our ID checker and ID person to get that table manned for us. So, but thank everybody, and we'll see you guys next year.
It was a great season, and thank you for spearheading that.
Thank you.
It's been a real success.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
It has.
Yep.
And Roy's there every time. Yeah. Yep,
We have been requested by Mary Kay Height to put cones up.
across
on
her driveway.
Not just across her driveway, but all the way down the side of her yard, because she says people are parking there.
Nobody's, well,
Okay.
okay.
All right. At that point, this part of the meeting is done, and we need a motion to move into closed session.
I'll make a motion to move into closed session.
For the reasons stated on the
Pursuant to the
agenda.
Virginia Code section for the following purposes, for the discussion or consideration of the performance and salaries of 2 specific employees, for the discussion of the hiring a town administrator.
And that's 2.237.
I'm sorry, yes, 22-3711A1.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right. Vote. Let's start with Marjorie.
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
I say yes. Mary?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Alana?
Yes.
All right. Thank you all for coming.